The chandeliers at the Ritz-Carlton ballroom sparkled like 1,000 fallen stars, casting golden light across 200 faces I barely recognized. My wedding day, the day I dreamed about since I was a little girl playing dress-up in my grandmother's attic, back when life was simple and love seemed pure. I stood there in my Vera Wang gown, ivory silk clinging to my body like a second skin, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on me. But not all those eyes were kind, especially not hers. Diane Rothschild, my soon-to-be mother-in-law. She sat at the head table in a champagne-colored dress that probably cost more than my first car, her lips pressed into a thin line that could have cut glass. From the moment Trevor introduced us 3 years ago, she'd made it clear I wasn't good enough for her golden boy. Not classy enough, not educated enough, and worst of all, not childless enough. My daughter Ivy was 8 years old, with my dark curls and her father's green eyes. Her father, the man who'd walked away the day I showed him the positive pregnancy test, leaving me to raise her alone while I worked 2 jobs and put myself through nursing school. I'd built a life from nothing, created a home with my own 2 hands, and loved that little girl with every atom of my being. But to Diane, I was just damaged goods, a single mom trying to trap her precious son. Trevor kissed my hand as we sat down for dinner. "You look incredible, Natalie. I'm the luckiest man alive." His blue eyes were sincere, full of that gentle warmth that made me fall for him in the first place. Trevor Rothschild wasn't like the trust fund babies you see on reality TV. He worked as a pediatric surgeon, 60-hour weeks, coming home exhausted but always making time for Ivy, always reading her bedtime stories, always showing up to her school plays. He was the father she'd never had, and the partner I'd stopped believing existed. "I love you," I whispered back, meaning it with everything in me. That's when Diane stood up. The room went quiet, 200 conversations dying mid-sentence. She tapped her champagne flute with a silver spoon, the crystal ring echoing through the ballroom like a death knell. My stomach dropped. Trevor had specifically asked her not to give a speech. We'd fought about it for weeks. She'd smiled that ice-cold smile and said, "Of course, whatever you want, darling." I should have known she was lying. "Good evening, everyone," Diane said, her voice carrying that patrician accent that came from old money and older grudges. "As the mother of the groom, I think it's important to speak from the heart on such a momentous occasion." Trevor's hand tightened on mine. "Mom, please don't—" She ignored him, her gaze sweeping across the room before landing on me like a sniper's crosshairs. "My son is a brilliant surgeon. He saved countless children's lives. He comes from a family with a legacy spanning 4 generations in this city. He deserves a real woman, not a single mom who sees him as a meal ticket." Gasps rippled through the crowd. I felt my face burn, tears stinging my eyes. Trevor jumped up, his chair clattering backward. "That's enough. You need to leave right now." But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, all those faces staring at me with pity or judgment or schadenfreude. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clasp them in my lap. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. She'd turned it into a public execution. And then I saw her. Ivy, my beautiful, brave little girl in her flower girl dress, pale pink tulle and white ribbons. She was walking toward the stage, her small face set with determination I'd never seen before. What was she doing? Panic shot through me. "Ivy, honey, come here." But she was already climbing the steps to the microphone. Someone handed it to her, and she stood there, under the spotlight, looking impossibly tiny and impossibly fierce. "Hi, everyone," she said, her voice wavering just slightly. "I'm Ivy. That's my mom right there." She pointed at me, and my heart was breaking and swelling all at once. "My new dad told me something a few weeks ago. He said if Grandma Diane ever said anything mean to my mom at the wedding, I should read this letter. So that's what I'm doing." She pulled a folded piece of paper from the pocket of her dress. My brain couldn't process what was happening. Trevor had planned this? He'd known his mother would pull something like this? Ivy unfolded the letter with careful hands and began to read in that clear, serious voice she used when she was nervous. "Dear Mom," Ivy read. "That's what Grandma Diane calls Trevor. But this letter is for everyone to hear. Grandma Diane says my mom isn't a real woman because she's a single mom. But I want everyone to know the truth about Grandma Diane, the real truth." Diane's face had gone white. She tried to stand, but her husband, Gerald, put a hand on her arm, his expression unreadable. Ivy continued, her voice growing stronger. "When I was 6, I had to go to the emergency room because I fell off my bike and broke my arm. My mom was working the night shift at the hospital, and Trevor came to stay with me instead. He wasn't even my dad yet. He just came because he cared. And you know what Grandma Diane did? She called him 16 times that night. She said he was wasting his time on someone else's mistake. She said my mom was using me to trap him. But Trevor said I'm not a mistake. He said I'm the best thing that ever happened to him and my mom." Tears were streaming down my face now. I looked at Trevor, and he was looking right back at me, his own eyes wet. He'd heard every vicious thing his mother said, and he documented it, planned for this exact moment. Ivy kept reading. "Last Christmas, Grandma Diane invited Trevor to her house in the Hamptons. She didn't invite me and my mom. Trevor said no. He wanted to spend Christmas with his family. That's us, me and my mom. So Grandma Diane told him she was cutting him out of his inheritance if he married my mom. Trevor said he didn't care about the money. He said my mom is worth more than all of it." Someone in the crowd started clapping, then another person, then a whole wave of applause rose up, drowning out Diane's stammered attempts to interrupt. Gerald Rothschild was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. His face was stone. "But here's the really bad part," Ivy said, and the room went quiet again. "Grandma Diane has a secret. Trevor hired someone to find out why she hates my mom so much. It's because Grandma Diane was pregnant when she got married to Grandpa Gerald. She was only 19, and the baby wasn't Grandpa's baby. It was someone else's. But she lied and said it was his, and they got married really fast, and she's been lying for 35 years. The ballroom exploded. People were shouting, gasping, turning to stare at Diane. Gerald Rothschild was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. His face was stone. "But here's the really bad part," Ivy said, and the room went quiet again. "Grandma Diane has a secret. Trevor hired someone to find out why she hates my mom so much. It's because Grandma Diane was pregnant when she got married to Grandpa Gerald. She was only 19, and the baby wasn't Grandpa's baby. It was someone else's. But she lied and said it was his, and they got married really fast. And she's been lying for 35 years. The silence was deafening. Diane looked around wildly, searching for an escape, but there was none. Finally, in a voice I almost couldn't hear, she said, "Yes." Ivy wasn't finished. "The baby died when he was 2 days old. Trevor's dad did a DNA test last week, and he found out that Trevor isn't even Grandpa Gerald's real son. Trevor's real dad was Grandma Diane's boyfriend from college, a guy named James Fitzgerald. He's still alive. He lives in Boston. He never knew about Trevor because Grandma Diane never told him." Trevor's face had gone sheet white. He sank back into his chair, staring at nothing. I reached for his hand, but he was somewhere else, processing a truth that had just demolished his entire identity. Gerald grabbed his coat from the back of his chair and walked out without another word. People were pulling out their phones, whispering, the gossip machine already churning at full speed. The Rothschild family, one of the most powerful dynasties in Manhattan, was imploding in real time. And Ivy still wasn't done. She looked right at Diane, and I saw a flash of something in my daughter's eyes that reminded me of myself, the part of me that had survived poverty and abandonment, and the sneers of people who thought I was trash, the the part that refused to break. Trevor says you don't get to decide who's a real woman, Grandma Diane, because real women tell the truth. Real women don't lie for 35 years. Real women don't fake their whole lives and then judge other people for being honest about their mistakes. My mom never lied about me. She never pretended I didn't exist. She worked really, really hard to take care of me, and she never asked anyone for help. So if you think she's not good enough for Trevor, maybe you should look in the mirror. Ivy folded the letter, set down the microphone, and walked back to me. I pulled her into my arms, holding her so tight I thought I might never let go. The room erupted in applause again, louder this time, a standing ovation that made the chandeliers tremble. Trevor finally moved, wrapping his arms around both of us, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Diane fled, just grabbed her purse and ran for the exit, her heels clicking frantically against the marble floor. Some people followed her. Most stayed. The band started playing again, tentatively at first, then with more confidence. Our wedding planner appeared at my elbow, asking if we wanted to proceed with the reception or call it off. Trevor wiped his eyes and looked at me. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I looked around the ballroom, at the guests who were still applauding, at Ivy, her small hand in mine, at Trevor, the man who'd loved me enough to blow up his entire family to protect me. And I realized something. Diane was gone, but we were still here. She'd tried to ruin this day, and instead she'd ruined herself. "I want to dance with my husband," I said. Trevor's smile broke through the tears. "Then let's dance." The rest of the night was surreal. People came up to us in waves, apologizing for Diane's behavior, congratulating us, asking if the story about Trevor's paternity was really true. Trevor confirmed it with a grim nod. "I've known for 3 weeks. Gerald and I did the DNA test together after I started digging into my mom's past. He wanted to know the truth as much as I did. I just didn't think she'd pull a stunt like this at the wedding. I should have known better." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked when we finally had a moment alone on the dance floor, his arms around my waist, my head on his chest. "Because I didn't want you to worry, and because I knew if she showed her true colors in front of everyone, she'd lose all her power. People like my mother thrive on appearances, on secrets. I took away both." "That letter, you wrote it for Ivy to read?" "I wrote it in case she tried to sabotage us. I gave it to Ivy last week and told her only to use it if my mom said something cruel to you. I never thought she'd actually have to do it, but I'm glad she did. You deserved to be defended, Nat. You and Ivy both." I kissed him, right there in the middle of the dance floor, not caring who saw. "You're incredible." "I'm just a guy who loves you, and who's really glad he hired that private investigator." Later, when the reception was winding down, Gerald Rothschild approached us. I'd seen him at family dinners, always quiet, always deferring to Diane, but now he looked different, unburdened. He shook Trevor's hand and then mine. "I'm sorry for what my wife did. Ex-wife, I should say. I've already called my lawyer. I'm filing for divorce in the morning." "I'm sorry, Gerald. I never wanted to blow up your marriage." "You didn't blow it up, son. It was never real to begin with. I've spent 35 years living a lie, loving a woman who lied to my face every single day, building a life on a foundation that didn't exist. I'm 64 years old, and I just found out the past 3 decades were a fiction. So no, you didn't blow it up. You set me free." He turned to me. "Your daughter was very brave tonight. You should be proud." "I am," I said, my voice thick. "And for what it's worth, I think Trevor's lucky to have you. I wish you both nothing but happiness. You've certainly earned it." He left after that, and I watched him go, wondering what happens to a man when his entire life gets rewritten in one night. But I didn't have much time to dwell on it, because my maid of honor showed up with a bottle of champagne and a wicked grin. "Girl, that was the most insane wedding I've ever been to, and I've been to a wedding where the groom's mistress objected during the vows." I laughed, the tension finally breaking. "I can't believe it actually happened. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up." Oh, it happened, and it's already on Twitter. Hashtag Rothschild wedding meltdown is trending. There's video. Oh, God. Don't worry, you look amazing. Diane looks like a villain from a soap opera. Public opinion is very much on your side. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The story went viral. News outlets picked it up. We were offered book deals, reality show contracts, interview requests from everyone from local news to national talk shows. Trevor and I turned down all of it. We just wanted to live our lives, away from the spotlight Diane had forced us into. But the fallout kept coming. Gerald filed for divorce and moved out of the family estate into a penthouse downtown. He reached out to James Fitzgerald, Trevor's biological father, and the two of them met for coffee. Trevor wasn't ready to meet James yet, but he said maybe someday. He needed time to process. Diane disappeared. She moved to her sister's house in Charleston and refused to speak to anyone. Trevor tried to call her once to tell her he didn't hate her, that he understood why she'd lied all those years ago, even if he couldn't forgive it. She hung up on him. As for me, I went back to work at the hospital, back to my 12-hour shifts and cranky patients and the controlled chaos of the ER. But everything felt different now, lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there, and now it was gone. I was Trevor's wife. Ivy had a father who adored her, and the woman who'd tried to destroy us had destroyed herself instead. 6 months after the wedding, we got a letter in the mail. It was from Diane. I almost didn't open it, but Trevor said we should. So we sat on the couch together, Ivy between us watching cartoons, and I unfolded the single piece of cream-colored stationery. It said, "I'm sorry." That's all. Just those 2 words in her sharp, slanted handwriting. No explanation, no excuses, just an apology that came 6 months too late. Trevor folded the letter and set it on the coffee table. "Do you think she means it?" "I don't know," I said honestly, "but it doesn't really matter, does it? She can't take back what she did. She can't undo the lies or the hurt. Maybe she's sorry, maybe she's just lonely. Either way, it doesn't change anything for us." "Do you think I should write back?" I thought about the woman who'd spent 3 years making me feel small, about the wedding day she'd tried to ruin, about the lies she'd built her entire life around. And then I thought about the life Trevor and I were building. The trips to the park with Ivy, the quiet Sunday mornings drinking coffee and reading the paper, the way he kissed my forehead when he left for work, the family dinners with Gerald, who'd become a regular presence in our lives, trying to build a real relationship with the son who wasn't his by blood, but was his in every way that mattered. "That's up to you," I said, "but whatever you decide, we're okay. We're more than okay." Trevor pulled me closer, kissed the top of my head. "Yeah, we are." Ivy looked up from her cartoon. "Are we talking about Grandma Diane?" "Yeah, baby, she sent us a letter." "Is she sorry?" "She says she is." Ivy thought about this with the seriousness only an 8-year-old can muster. "I think people should get second chances, but they have to earn them. She has to show she's really sorry, not just say it." Out of the mouths of babes, Trevor and I exchanged a look, both of us marveling at the wisdom of this little girl who'd stood on a stage and read the truth while 200 people watched. She was going to be something special. She already was. "You're right," Trevor said. "Second chances have to be earned." He never wrote back to Diane, but he didn't throw the letter away either. He kept it in his desk drawer, a reminder of the past we'd left behind and the future we were building. And every now and then, I'd catch him looking at it, his expression unreadable, working through emotions I couldn't name. A year after the wedding, Gerald remarried, a woman named Susan who taught art history at NYU and laughed at his terrible jokes and didn't care about his money or his name. We went to the wedding, a small ceremony in Central Park with 20 guests and a string quartet. It was nothing like the spectacle of our wedding, and it was perfect. Gerald looked happy, really, truly happy, like he'd been given a second chance at life and wasn't going to waste it. Trevor met James Fitzgerald 2 years after the wedding. They had lunch at a diner in Boston, just the two of them, and talked for 4 hours. Trevor came home exhausted and emotional and said it was one of the hardest things he'd ever done, but also one of the best. James was a retired high school teacher with 3 other kids, Trevor's half-siblings, who were excited to meet him. It was complicated and messy and awkward and beautiful, all at once. As for Diane, I heard through the grapevine that she'd started seeing a therapist, that she'd apologized to Gerald, really apologized, and he'd forgiven her, even though he didn't take her back, that she'd written to Trevor again, asking if he'd consider meeting for coffee. He said maybe. Not yet, but maybe. I didn't know if she'd ever fully reckon with what she'd done. Some people never do. They carry their shame and their secrets to the grave, never brave enough to face the truth. But I hoped she would. Not for her sake, but for Trevor's, because he deserved a mother who could love him without conditions, who could accept that his life didn't have to look like hers to be valid, who could admit she was wrong. But whether she did or not, we were okay. Better than okay. We were happy. Ivy was thriving, a straight-A student who wanted to be a doctor like Trevor. We'd moved to a brownstone in Brooklyn, away from the Upper East Side and the ghosts of the Rothschild name. We had game nights on Fridays and pancakes on Sunday mornings, and inside jokes that made us laugh until we cried. And every year on our anniversary, Trevor and I went back to the Ritz-Carlton ballroom. We'd have a drink at the bar and toast to the day our life together began, the day Diane tried to destroy us and ended up freeing us instead, the day Ivy stood up and read the truth while the world watched. Because that's the thing about revenge. Real revenge isn't violence or cruelty or public humiliation. Real revenge is living well, building a life so full of love and joy that the people who try to tear you down become irrelevant. Showing up every day and choosing happiness over bitterness, refusing to let their poison touch you. Diane Rothschild tried to ruin my wedding. Instead, she gave me the greatest gift she could have given, proof that I'd chosen the right man, a man who'd loved me enough to face the ugliest parts of his own family, who'd protected me and Ivy with everything he had, who'd blown up his whole world to build a better one. So yes, she stood up at my wedding and called me a single mom who wasn't a real woman. And yes, my 8-year-old daughter walked to the stage and read the truth. And yes, it was the most dramatic, insane, beautiful moment of my life. Because in the end, the truth set us free. All of us. Even Diane, whether she knew it or not. And that's the best revenge of all.